Iliza Shlesinger is the star and creator of the Iliza Shlesinger Sketch Show on Netflix. Iliza, what was the hardest sketch to get right?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'm not used to good questions, like right out of the gate. The hardest sketch to get right. You know what? When we did the ladies, I had a very specific thing in my head about how I wanted them to greet each other, and the women got it immediately. I think in the edit, it was the hardest one to get right. Because we didn't have a live studio audience, so the sound mix was incredibly challenging, making something feel big and expensive when in reality, you shot it very small. We didn't have the right soundtrack for it, and making sure that the cuts were reflective of what we were trying to convey in that show. If I had my way, those women would have just greeted each other up top for a good solid 10 minutes. And then we would have gone to commercial. So tonally and edit-wise, that one was the trickiest. And then I think in the actual show, I guess they were all fairly easy to execute because a lot of it was just me doing something. Now I'm like scrolling through my head. You know what? None of them. All the other comedians that we hired got it. Our director got it. Yeah, I don't think we struggled with anything day of that I can think of. Everybody kind of was on the same page.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
It is like in the world today. There's so many sketch shows. There's so many different types out there, and like different sort of stuff. How is it trying to navigate finding your voice in a sort of in a sea of sketch where there's probably more sketch comedy being done now than we've ever had before, at least in terms of TV?
Well, it's more for the audience to find me, because when I make something, I don't consider what else is out there. And also, I was given the sketch show, I guess, because I have such a specific voice. So it wasn't difficult to navigate and find the voice. Going into it, I had a very clear vision of how irreverent I wanted the sketches. And you want to pepper in a social message here and there, but I really wanted to let the weird part of my brain that Hollywood is always saying, like, push it back. I wanted to exercise that. So I found it, I mean, as somewhat of a veteran comic, for about almost 15 years, I found it very easy to hone right in on exactly what it was I wanted to do.
Can you think of a sketch that sort of best embodies or particularly well bodies that weird part of your brain?
It's interesting because the two sides of it, like there's the whole thing where I stand up for women and I make a salient social point. And so I think the AA for self-esteem really, while it's not weird at all, I think it's very much tonally in there with the stand-up that I do. But Cashew Albacore, the billionaire airline owner who has something wrong with him, he came to me like in a dream. Like he just poured out of me. I'm not saying I'm Michelangelo and he's my David and all I had to do was carve away the marble to find his fat body. But I feel like that one for me was the most fun and is most emblematic of the types of thoughts and voices that are in my head all the time, minus the locking people in the closet.
Yeah. And I think that that Airlines sketch is particularly interesting in highlighting like just some absurd, weird character, while at the same time being grounded in the idea of what people are prepared to sort of go through for a cheap flight and the sort of airlines they're prepared to travel in.
That's a great take on it. And the whole thing was actually born out of, we always find it so irritating how it's only once you've started to fall asleep on a flight sometimes that they then have their in-flight announcements, and it's how you're just captive to whatever credit card they want to sell you, whatever they want to say, beyond the safety announcements.
I like that, yeah. Oh, that's good. You talked about what was I going to say? You talked about the self-esteem sketch and the things that you've said about women through some of your sketches and also your stand-up comedy. What has it been like, as you described, being a veteran comic, but also a veteran female comic? And has that been particularly challenging or not?
What's the question?
The question is, how have you found being a female comic over the sort of the past 15 years?
I've never been a male comic, so it's hard to give an accurate answer. I mean, you're asking me to encapsulate a 15-year experience. What I can tell you, in doing this show, I felt that it was my chance and my turn to not necessarily say something as social and to do something fun. I think the height of feminism is getting to do something weird and not be worried about perception or being cute or being PC and just doing whatever it is that's in your brain and doing something weird. I'm a huge fan of weird sketch comedy and weird things in general, and weird things make me laugh, and off things make me laugh, and awkwardness makes me laugh. And so this was my chance to do something that sort of was a departure from the stand-up, whether it was Nectarine conference call or female Jackass or any of the weird sketches that populated all 6 of those episodes.
Now you've, as you say, you've done stand-up comedy as well. You have 5 Netflix specials. Your 5th Netflix special unveiled came out late last year. What was that experience been like, and how is sort of doing your 5th Netflix special different than doing your first stand-up special?
I'm better. I'm better at stand-up.
How are you better? How are you better? How have you gotten better?
That's like asking anyone that's been doing anything and asking an athlete, your first competition versus competing in the Olympics, you're more polished. You have a better sense of a point of view. It's an evolved point of view. I think the stuff that I was talking about in my first special, whatever that was, I think we're worlds away from it. In the 5th special, never mind even the fact about getting married. I think it's a polished point of view. The actual craft of stand-up is refined. My goal as an entertainer is always to be evolving and looking for new ways to express myself and pulling in more and more, not just a larger audience, but different types of audiences, while hoping my original audience grows with me. I never want to be the comic telling the same kind of jokes at the beginning and at the end.
Yeah. And you, how has your is something you've learnt from doing comedy for 15 years?
These are really open-ended questions with one thing I've learned from doing comedy for 15 years is that everybody wants to know how the sausage is made, but nobody actually has the stomach for it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Comedy is a gritty business. It's ugly. I've learned that people expect a lot from comedians, and you're always up for review. And one thing that I've learned is that comedy is subjective. I think I knew that before, but I carry that with me all day, every day. You don't have to be the best comic to everyone at all times. That's why there's so many of us. And your at-bats are what's important. Getting to make a sketch show like this was a departure from stand-up, which is different from the movies that I've done and stuff like that. And just getting to work with an ensemble versus being a soloist. Like stand-up is a solo sport and sketch is an ensemble. And we really wanted to make this a diverse show. We made sure, everybody auditioned and everybody was funny, but we wanted it to be an environment of inclusion. We made sure we had we had Black people, we had people of color, we had trans actors, gay actors. We wanted this to just be a place where you're funny just because you're funny, and that's that.
Yeah, was there a particular sketch where you sort of which you think encapsulated quite well that idea of how the ensemble works well together and how you could sort of lean into that collaborative approach to comedy?
Yeah, I think female Jackass was great. Those girls were all super funny, and they all are, they're New York City comics and comedians, and they all kind of put their own spin on their characters. We all kind of got into it because we all identified with the material, whether you're gay or straight. There's heartbreak is still pervasive, and insecurity, just being a girl. And then Nectarine conference call, or whatever we're calling it, just seeing everyone kind of, because that's a weird thing to eat a bunch of nectarines and still deliver your lines. So people got a chance to be uncomfortable and let loose in this like corporate environment. And I really liked the stillness in Mystery at Sea, where we talk about the woman who didn't die on a boat. I love seeing funny people get very serious. That makes it even funnier.
Yeah, the straight, the deadpan sort of delivery and stuff like that. The nectarine scene was particularly fun because it took a while. Like there was a minute or so before it took the turn, and you knew what the sketch was about. It just starts as this regular meeting, and then they start going for the nectarines. And I've definitely been in meetings where no one touches the food, and then as soon as someone goes for it, it's open season for the whole.
That's funny.
For the whole crew.
I didn't even think about the entry point for eating. It was and it's so funny, that sketch was based off of a sketch I had written years ago for this channel, for ABC's digital branch called ABCD, and I had a show which is still up there called Forever 31. It's on Hulu, and I had written a season 2 before they realized that there was no money for a second season. But in it, I wrote a whole painful conference call because nobody wants to be on them. Everybody's doing something else. Everything's excruciating. So I brought that into the writer's room, and we did have nectarines that day in the writer's room. And so it just became that.
Oh, I love it.
What if people were just eating nectarines? Yeah. And it was
I should have brought a nectarine for this interview. Is there looking back on season 1, what sketch was the most fun one to do?
So because they're also fun, being Cashew Albacore was fun. Well, let me answer that in 2 ways, because I'll say the least fun and I'll say the most fun. The nectarine was fun. It was sticky and messy, and it's just a total departure from anything that any of us have ever gotten to do. And as a cast, we all got to enjoy that versus just 1 or 2 of us. So I think the entire cast had fun doing it. Cashew Albacore, while I loved being him, was so painful and such a nightmare. It took 3 hours to get into that prosthetic makeup. And it was hot in New York, and I had written a character that wore a lot of layers in addition to 2 fat suits. So it was like a team effort to keep me cool because you're just hot and nauseous. You have a latex cap on, so none of the heat's escaping. And you're warm, and your face is covered in paint and latex, and your teeth are all gritty, and there's fake hair everywhere, and it's getting in your mouth. So he truly was disgusting. So that was probably, and even some of the other ones, like I like doing Beelzebubly and stuff like that. But some of the stuff at the beginning, you're so nervous. It's your first day. You don't really know the other actors. And we all kind of got into a swing. I think we had fun doing female Jackass also. Because you got to move around a lot. Got to wear a wallet chain. That was cool. I'm trying to think of the other one. Sex Robot took a very long time. I'm not in that one. I'm just the voice. But the shooting of that took a long time. And building that robot was very expensive, and definitely did not make it into the first 2 episodes, which were, I think, the best 2 of the 6.
Yeah. Do you know if there's going to be a second season of the sketch show?
I hold out hope.
Okay, hold out hope. What's something you'd like to see from a second season?
Just a continuation of more of those characters getting to dive even deeper into weirder and wackier stuff. And just my goal in comedy, as always, is to do bigger and better comedy and reach more and more people.
Yeah. Well, Iliza, thanks so much for talking to us today. All the best of luck with the upcoming Emmy Awards in the sketch categories for the Iliza Shlesinger Sketch Show, and for whatever you got coming up next.